Hello and good morning, and welcome to the Sunday edition of A Proud Malcontent. I'm Pete Bell, and I am a proud malcontent. I was I was very much a malcontent yesterday. I did not have a good day. I don't think I've had a good day since the tragedy of the SNP conference. And it's just that hit me really hard. I got really, really down after that. I mean, there's been a lot to despair about in the independence movement. There's in Scotland's cause a lot to despair about in the last months, possibly years. But the SNP conference seemed to it hit me hard, and it seems to have had the same effect on other people. I say this because eventually, when I managed to drag myself out of bed yesterday, this is one of the things that happens when you get depressed, and clinically depressed, is that you just don't want to face the day, and it becomes very, very difficult to motivate yourself to do anything. So I wasn't at all motivated to go to an event which I was to attend yesterday, and that was the AGM of Liberation Scotland, and uh, it was just across the road in the Salutation Hotel, which meant I couldn't really make a good excuse for for not going. So I think if I'd had to travel, I probably wouldn't have attended it. But in the end, I'm glad I did. I came away from that the conference cheered somewhat. Uh, it lifted me out of the slough of despond into which I had fallen, at least partially, and not so much the AGM itself, the meeting. As you'll know, AGMs, it tends to be organization business, internal business, and it can be a bit dry. And a lot of it was, but there was also some serious contributions from various people, such as Alex Thorburn, Jeff Bush, and in particular Sarah Salyers, who really shouldn't have been there. But what a sojer! Uh, she was she was really ill, really suffering, really bad cold, quite obviously suffering. But she was there, and she made some very valuable contributions, making some points, emphasising some points, correcting some misunderstandings. She was up and down to the microphone all the time. Uh, she wasn't actually scheduled to be on the platform. She did later. She came on and gave a talk about where Liberation Scotland is with the UN initiative, and that seems to be making much more rapid progress. It's very difficult to judge these things because it's such a convoluted process, but it seems to be making much more rapid progress than anybody expected. There hasn't been as much kickback against it as people had anticipated. So uh, it's going well. I think we can say that we can say cautiously that it's going well. But what really affected me was and this is always true of these events, party conferences and whatnot. The social gathering around it, the things happening on the fringes, the conversations over a drink or whatever, they tend to be at least as valuable as the event itself. And that proved to be the case yesterday. I resorted to the bar, as you would expect, which I'm quite familiar with, it being just across the road from me. I resorted to the bar and had numerous conversations with lots of lots of people, and they were just stimulating conversations. And there were several things that struck me about the way people were talking. One was the number of people who seemed to feel exactly the same way as myself about the SNP conference and John Winnie's so-called strategy for independence. And everybody, I'm going to risk saying everybody. There were over 100 people there, I think, 120 people. So obviously I didn't speak to them all, but the theme was the same, and all the people I talked to maybe a dozen, maybe 15, maybe 20 people, and the theme running through it was the same. The attitude to the SNP conference and Swinney's proposal was well, pretty much universally discussed. Everybody's just sickened by it. I don't know if that will get through to John Swinney. I doubt very much if it will. But I think he's made a serious misjudgment here. It was obviously not a strategy for independence. It is obviously a strategy for maximising, increasing the SNP vote, and trying to drag people back who've been lured away by the other nominally pro-independence parties, trying to basically blackmail people into voting SNP by saying that only a vote for the SNP will create this mandate. And well, that could be true. It could be true that voting for the SNP would create a mandate, but a mandate for what? It's not a mandate for any action on Scotland's cause. Nothing to progress the fight, the struggle for Scotland's liberation. That's not what the mandate is. There are still a great many people who are deceived into thinking that by voting SNP, they are giving the Scottish government or the presumed Scottish government after 2026, if we're going by the polls, they're giving that government a mandate for independence. They're not, of course. It's a mandate for a Section 30 request with all the dreadful things that implies. So it's not a mandate for independence. The other thing that I found in talking to people was, and this surprised me and pleased me more than anything, the attitude to John Swinney, the SNP, and the proposal. That didn't surprise me at all. I was surprised to find it as generalized as it was. But what did surprise me was the number of people who were coming up to me and expressing interest in the Scottish UDI strategy. People wanted to talk about it. And this is new. This is new. Previously, I've had to work. I've had to work very hard to get people to listen. But I'm now finding that people are actually coming and asking, or that was what was happening yesterday. It's happened before. It's happened at other events, but not by anything like this extent that it happened yesterday. There was there was a great interest, and it came up in every conversation that the whole approach to the constitutional issue has to be changed. That has to be adjusted. That has to be brought up to date. It has to be an approach which deals with the situation as it actually is. Uh, John Swinney's proposal is basically it's just an attempt to replicate 2011. I mean, he said that it's an attempt to replicate 2011. Robin McAlpine, in an excellent article, tore that idea to shreds, but he hardly needed to. I mean, it should be obvious that 2011 was a fluke. The SNP majority government in 2011 was a fluke. It was uh, a product of numerous coincidences. It was a total fluke. It, you cannot engineer a fluke. By definition, you can't engineer a fluke. So what John Swinney is proposing is just it simply makes no sense. Basic logic knocks it down right away. But this is a case of politicians just finding the words, the words that appeal to people, the words that lure voters, and just giving no thought whatsoever to the meaning behind these words or how it all joins up. It's just saying things that will appeal to people, and that I have to admit, John Swinney's good at it. Maybe it wasn't that difficult to persuade the delegates at the SNP conference. Maybe they were pre-primed to believe their beloved leader, but it just seemed it seemed blindly easy for John Swinney to get the leadership resolution passed unscathed, totally unscathed. Graham McCormick made a valiant effort to at least try and adjust it a bit. But even that, I regarded Graham McCormick's amendment as far too weak. It didn't really change it didn't change the approach at all. The Newington resolution would have done that. But I still hope that Graham McCormick's amendment would be passed. I hope that there would be some kickback against the leadership conference. I think we've been hoping that for years. Possibly, going back to 2015, 2016, we've been hoping to see the delegates at the conference to kind of turn around the leadership and say, just hang on a minute, this is not right. The way you're going about this, the things you're doing and the things you're not doing, but it hasn't happened. Every single SNP conference, and the one a couple of weeks ago was no exception. It's like, even I am not learning my lesson. I have to admit it. There's still hope for that kickback, and it's obvious it's just not going to happen. What does that imply? It implies that the original task that I set for the Manifesto for Independence, the Scottish UDI plan, was to change the SNP, because the SNP is going to be the party of government. We have to assume that, because that's what the polls are saying. And even if the polls are very wrong, or even if there's some dramatic change in the polls between now and actual polling day, the SNP is still going to dominate. There's still going to be a very significant presence. So it's quite clear that far from changing as was required, what John Swinney has done is he's dug in. It's been retrenchment. He's dug in. If anything, he's got worse. Generally, looking at everything that the SNP is doing now, it's like we're it's like deja vu. It's like we're reliving the Sturgeon era, and it's quite deliberate. He's trying to recreate that whole era. He doesn't seem to remember or realise that era failed. That it did nothing for Scotland's cause. What does it imply? It implies that we need another party. We need another party. Post-colonial theory predicts the capture of the national government by the colonizer, by the administering power, to use UN language. And that is just so clearly happened. I mean, John Swinney is not even attempting to hide the fact that he's not actually trying for independence. He's not even concealing that fact anymore. He's relying on the party faithful, deluding themselves, and he uses the word independence a lot to help them delude themselves. But it's quite clear that he has taken the SNP a massive distance away from being the party of independence. That means we need another party. The people of Scotland must have an opportunity in 2026, next year. They must have an opportunity to vote for a genuine independence party, not a nominally pro-independence party, but a genuine pro-independence party. It's obviously not going to be the SNP. So who's it going to be? That's one for another day, because today, as every Sunday, we invite along our resident number cruncher to present Confute Corner. And this week, Stephen Duncan is going to be talking about migration. Now, light the blue touch paper and stand well clear. Hello, Stephen.
Hi. Hello, Peter.
Aye. I suspect this one could provoke a bit of interest, the subject of migration. And I think you should just get on with it, because I think I haven't done too badly with my Sunday rant. I could have gone on longer, but I reined myself in. So I'll give myself a wee pat on the back for that.
You can always come back to it later.
I've left people in suspense about what I mean by a different party. That one has to be explored later. If I got into that, Stephen, you'd never have got a look in. So, are you ready for this? Is everybody ready for this? Stephen Duncan, ladies and gentlemen, and remember, this is him speaking, not me. Stephen Duncan on the subject of migration. Over to you, Stephen.
Thanks for that introduction, Peter. Yeah, this is something I looked at about 3 years ago, the first time around, before the latest census from 2022 was published, and I'm specifically interested on the likely impact of migration. That's people moving in, but also, most importantly, people moving out of Scotland, and what the likely impact is on yes sentiment, and what the implications may be for any future referendum that takes place on the constitutional question.
First interruption, Stephen, there will be more. When you talk about the implications for a referendum, do you have in mind the kind of referendum we had in 2014? Or is there something else, or is it the same? Are the implications the same regardless of what kind of referendum it is? For example, if I can just say, would it affect the implications? Would migration the implications of migration. Sorry, if they would they have the same effect if the question was instead of should Scotland be an independent country, should Scotland leave the UK, or should Scotland end the Union? Would that change how migration has affects things? Sorry, I'm.
So I understand what you're saying. I have no idea whether that would have an impact at all. I don't think there's been any research done on it. If there has, I'm not aware of it, and into what effect the question would have on the existing population as it is now, or as it has been over the last 10 years, or it might be in the future. I don't know. I imagine it would, however. I don't, whether that would be positive or negative, I don't know. I'm not sure. It'd have to. It's something that would have to be. I think it's some research that would be worthwhile investing in doing.
Yeah.
Should be in a position to actually have a referendum.
So you're looking at the effect on yes sentiment,
Yep.
but how that translates into voting in a referendum depends very much on the type of referendum it is, and probably other factors as well. But I would think that the type of referendum is a significant factor. So it's just a general yes sentiment. It's not particularly. It's not applied to any particular referendum. I
No,
don't
it's
think
not.
I'm
But
expressing myself very well here for some reason. However,
although,
yeah, sorry, you get what I mean, and
yes, I do. Yeah.
hopefully the audience does as well. And if they do, well, congratulations, folks.
All the information I'll be looking at in terms of opinion polls will be based on the question: should Scotland be an independent country? The question was asked in 2014. I'm not sure if that really answers the point you're making. I do understand the point you're making, but that's what the opinion poll demographics that we're going to look at briefly will be concerned with. But for the meantime, just a few bits and pieces from the census published in 2022, and also some of the migration information that's published on an annual basis in the middle of the year by the National Records of Scotland. There's four charts there. If we look at the top three, that's a sort of time series of the breakdown of Scotland's population from 1991 at 10-year intervals. And on the left-hand side, that's the information by country of birth, and you can see that in these blue bars, that's the proportion made up of by people who were born in Scotland, and you can see that that's in long-term decline. It was in 89% in 1991. 30 years later, it's 79%. It's a sort of steady decline in Scottish-born people constituting that part of the population. There's the yellow bar is those people are from or born in the rest of the United Kingdom, and you can see there's been a steady uplift in that proportion. It's now just over 10%, 10.4%. Excuse me, the purple bit at the top, you can see that there's been a big increase there, particularly in the last 10 years, where those people that are born outside of the United Kingdom altogether were just about 7%, and now they're over 10% of the population. So a big increase in the last 10 years to 2022 in those people born outside the UK. The middle chart is looks at the breakdown between breakdown of those that were born in the rest of the United Kingdom between England and the rest, as it were, Wales and Northern Ireland and Isle of Man and other dependencies within that. And essentially, the rest of the United Kingdom is England. It's 90% of the time. Our UK, it really means born in England. On the right-hand side, the third chart there, that's a breakdown of those that were born outside the United Kingdom. And initially in 1991, 2001, the ratio between non-EU born and EU born was 2-1 in favour of the former. That changed a little bit in 2011, quite significantly. And the reason for that is, well, there was a bigger increase in those people born in the EU as a proportion of the population compared to those who were born outside the EU. That was due to the enlargement of the EU in 2004, which saw the EU increase to 22 states from 12, and the population increased by about a fifth, I think 75 million. So it was a step increase, a doubling of the proportion of those people born in the EU as they represented the population of Scotland. So it goes from 1.3% to just over 3% in that time period. It slowed down subsequently. Thereafter, it's now just about 6% for the non-EU, 4% for those people born in the EU. And the reason for that is, if you look at the left-hand chart at the bottom, which has the migration patterns there, you can see that since 2011, that sort of salmon pink line steadily increases. It starts ramping up from about 2011, and then a big step increase around about 2020, around about the sort of where the coronavirus sort of kicked in, or 2022. There's been a big increase in those people coming into Scotland who were born outside the UK. In terms of the outflows, which is the blue line and the yellow line, those people leaving Scotland for the UK and for overseas, there's been a bit of a tailing off there. So that sort of gives you the background to what's been happening with the population in Scotland and the migration patterns that are within that.
Well, just it struck me there to make the point that when you talked about that doubling of the immigrants from the EU, that was a big, as you say, a big step change. And those sort of things don't happen very often, I don't think. But there is a tendency for people of a certain mindset to look at things like that, or take things like that, where there is a big step change like that, a doubling, more or less, and treat that as if it's a trend, a continuing trend. And obviously, what your chart shows is that we have to be very, very wary about that, because when you get a big increase like that, it's not a trend, is it?
It's just a one-off, it would appear, and it may well have fallen back because since then we've had Brexit. So that, I think, that's had an effect on the continentals, if you like, moving here, or maybe some of them moving back. But it's the non-EU element that seems that must have increased. That's caused that big increase in the inflows from outside the UK. I would suggest that the bulk of that is from outside of the EU, and that's in other words, the proportions of the population made up by those people outside of the EU is reinstating itself to where it was historically, or starting to, it would appear.
Yeah. The point I was trying to make is this is by taking a big change like that, a sudden step change like that, and treating it as a trend. Saying, for example, the immigration from the EU has doubled, and then treating that as if it's a trend, like it's going to double every period, and saying, by such and such a date, there will be the native population will be totally overwhelmed. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yes, you have to understand.
It's one of the ways that people use statistics in a deceptive and a dishonest way. I just thought that was worth mentioning. Maybe it is.
It is. It's a specific. There's a specific reason for that and I've just hopefully that's the reason. The 2004 enlargement of the EU caused that as a one-off. That's not likely to, for that the EU will well, it didn't double the population, put the population up by a fifth, but it did more or less double the number of countries. So I assume all countries within the EU had the same sort of pattern or something similar happened there as well.
It rather emphasises the point that came out in today's blog article, for which I have to largely thank you. You provided most of the material for it. How by questioning these things, you discover the lie. By questioning that step change and claims made about it as if it was a trend, you question them and you discover, no, it is because of that one-off reason. There's not a trend there at all. It's a sudden one-off step change, but you don't find that out unless you ask the questions.
Yeah. Agreed.
There's a lesson there.
Yeah. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. Now, a couple of demographics here. We've looked at some of this before in previous presentations, but this is specific to migration. I'm going to be applying these in later slides. So the top three charts look at the demographic of age, looking at as depicted by four different pollsters, namely Norstat, Ipsos, Survation, and YouGov. It's a breakdown by age bracket of the yes sentiment. So on the left hand side, you've got a similar pattern from the three different pollsters, Norstat, Ipsos, and Survation. Clearly, those people under the age of 34, whichever one you pick of these three pollsters, the sentiment is roughly 73% of that population, that subpopulation, is in favour of yes. It's 50-50 for the middle bracket, and those a bit older, are perhaps not surprisingly more in favour of no. The middle chart is just the Survation broken down by us. They provide their information at a greater level of detail, more age bands, as it were. And you can see in that leftmost band, the 16 to 24-year-olds, they're saying that 83% are of that segment of the population are in favour of yes. So it's even higher, in that 16 to 24-year-old bracket than it is in the 16 to 34-year-old bracket. And on the right-hand side is YouGov, which is a lot more conservative, but it still says in the 16 to 24-year-old bracket that 64%, so almost two-thirds, are in favour of yes. And again, there's that sliding scale as you move into the older age categories. The bottom three charts, or the bottom first two charts, look at the information from Norstat on the country of birth, something we've looked at before. And that's telling us that for the last five, the left-hand side is an average of the last five opinion polls from Norstat, and they're saying that those people born in Scotland are, a little bit are marginally in favour of yes, 53%. Those people coming from England, it's a third, and it's just over 50%, 51% for those people outside the UK. In the more recent opinion poll, that Norstat have produced, it's where yes was actually higher overall. So all these three segments of the population are showing a greater incidence for yes: 55% for Scottish born, 37% for people born in England, and 57%, quite high, for those people born outside the UK. I prefer the moving average because it takes out sort of spikes and dips, it sort of smooths off the information, makes it more reliable. And that's shown in a time series of that sort of that moving average of five opinion polls is shown in that right-hand side graph at the bottom there, something we looked at before. And again, it just shows you how those born outside the UK have moved from being around about 1 in 3 in favour of yes to just over 50% now and in England that's gone from 1 in 4 to about 1 in 3. So it's a gradual improvement. We've looked at that before, but the reason for showing that is really the next chart, or next slide. So what this does is it tries to take that information I've just run through and make an estimate of what the potential impacts are on the yes/no sentiment and in any future referendum. So I've numbered these. So I'll just go through these different sections quickly, if I may. So number 1, we're looking at the first little table there, the population in Scotland on census day, which is 20th of March 2022, it's 5.4 million. We've then had some further migration since that the information was produced, and it's broken down in the information from National Records of Scotland, broken down by age band rather helpfully. And we can see those bits that I've highlighted in that second table, highlighted in orange, and that shows that 65% of those that are of voting age, so those that are 16 and above, the 2 youngest brackets show that that's where the greatest outflow of the population is from Scotland. And that's also where the greatest incidence is for yes. If you remember the previous charts that I showed on the breakdown of yes sentiment by age bracket, it's people under the age of 34. It's roughly about 75% of people are in favour of yes. So we're the greatest bulk of people leaving the country on an annual basis is coming from that cohort of people who are roughly 3 to 1 in favour of yes.
I'm thinking this has implications for the claim that as the older people are dying off, the young people, the people who are pro yes or who tend to be pro yes, they will increase as a proportion of the population. This is one sort of theory that's propounded. The demographic trend favours yes, but that's not necessarily so. Is that?
Well, there's a few things going on there. I think if somebody once said that time is on my side with regard to the reference Scotland gaining independence, i.e., because younger people are increasingly in favour of independence, then it's inevitable that it will happen. But if we're losing a lot of these people, on a yearly basis, then that's going to be a drag on independence, even if they're being replaced by others coming into the population who were 14 and 15, who are now 16 and 17. It's still a drag because it could be higher. But if we held on to these people, or and this is important, I think if we did have a referendum, you extend the vote to those that have just recently left.
That's that's getting into this is into the question of the votes for the diaspora, which is very tricky, and I think perhaps not something for today.
Well, maybe towards the end of it, it's maybe part of the discussion is that we consider people look at the immigration side of the question only and who should get a vote that is living here, where perhaps we should be thinking equally about who should get a vote for those people who have just left. Not people who've been away for 20 years, but maybe people who have been living here all their life and have gone just left the country in 6 months for 6 months.
It's certainly an issue that comes up quite a lot. So yes, you're correct. It does fit with today's subject of migration. So I probably shouldn't dismiss it as I just did. Yeah, well, we can talk about that later, but not much later.
Right. Okay. Better crack on. Yeah, the second table there, it's really just some calculations I've done to establish what the well, I've got the information from the census and from the National Records of Scotland, just to show the proportion of people that generally register, that could register on to vote. So first of all, those that are 15 years old and under, roughly about 16% of the population, they don't get a vote. Of those that are eligible to register, the NRS information would suggest that about 92% of people do actually register. So a lot of people just don't register for one reason or another. And then for later on, I've made the assumption that, that if in a future referendum, as before, we would get a turnout of 85%. Multiply these two percentages together, roughly 78% of people who are eligible to register and vote would ultimately do that. So taking these assumptions into the section 3, the tables there, we've got a population of 5.4 million on census date. If we apply that filter, we would assume a turnout of about 3.55 million. And looking at the migration over the 2 years or 2.25 years from the census to the middle of 2024, for which data is available from the NRS, we haven't got any information later. It usually comes out about 9 months after the fact. Apply that to the inflows in the UK from outside the UK and also those people leaving. We get the numbers on the second part of the table there. Taking it all together, I've generated 8 different scenarios. I'm just going to focus in on the top 4. We've got, I've taken that census day turnout of 3.55 million and just split it evenly between yes and no, because that's roughly where the opinion polls were and probably are now, over a period of time. So that's one. So I'm assuming that there's, the population is split. The population as at 2022 is split evenly, 1.775 million each. The inflows in the UK for the next 2 years was roughly 2 to 1 in favour of no. That's essentially people moving in from England. If you remember, 90% of people from the rest of the UK come from England or born in England. Let's put it that way. So I'm assuming that the opinion polls that suggest that it's 2 to 1 in favour of no from those coming from England, that applies here. So 49,000 versus 25,000 no to yes. The inflows from outside the UK, because it's roughly at the moment and has been for a number of years 50-50 or slightly in favour of yes, there's a neutral effect there. 57,000 would be yes, 55,000 would be no. So virtually no impact. Then what I've done with the outflows to both the rest of the UK and outside the UK, I've applied these percentage breakdowns from the 4 different pollsters. That's why I've got 4 different scenarios. And when you do that and work the numbers right through, the 50-50 split that we had at the beginning between the census day population becomes more or less 49-51. So it's 49% yes, 51% no. So it's roughly, maybe 0.5, 0.7% swing from yes to no. That table's wrong, by the way. It shouldn't say no to yes. It should say yes to no. So there's a swing there of, on average, across the piece, of about 0.6% from yes to no. And that's in 2.25 years. Remember here, there will be other offsetting factors, but we are just looking at everything else, all other things being equal, and trying to isolate the effects of inflows and outflows on the yes sentiment. So
Sorry,
That's
sorry to butt in again, Stephen. Is there an assumption here? Sorry, I'll put it this way. Is there any research on what proportion of the inflows from England, how they split between yes and no? Is there any research on that?
Oh yes, there's if we can look at the chart again, it's roughly oh oh sorry, actually there's no information being provided by the National Record of Scotland. They don't do that. They don't put any politics into it at all. But the opinion polls show that it's roughly 2-1 in favour of no. I'm just going back here. See that bottom right hand chart there. You can't, because I'm in the way here. There's a red line there that shows that it was roughly that yes was roughly 25% from around about the time of the referendum, just after the referendum, for people coming from England, and then it moves up to currently to about 33%. I think it peaked about 35% in the middle of that time period. So it's gone from 1 in 4 to 1 in 3. So it's improved, but still, very much, 67% of people coming from England are in favour, are not in favour of independence.
It strikes me that where you're looking for new yes voters, there's a bit of a target market there. If these people could be convinced, that could make a significant difference. But the point I'm making is that there's not much point in targeting the market that is being targeted now, which is the market that can be persuaded by the vision sales tactic, presenting a vision of Scotland. There maybe should be some other tactic which would attract people who normally don't vote at all. And possibly also the inflow from England, something that might target them. Just a passing thought.
Good point. Yeah. So just to finish off that bottom right-hand chart, that looks at we talked about a swing of about 0.6% from yes to no. What's actually driving that? Well, it's I would suggest 4 of these bars, they relate to the 4 scenarios, that about 60% of it, that's the yellow and blue bits added together, that's the outflows to the rest of the UK and to the outside of the UK. 60% of that swing is being caused by the loss of yes supporting migrants from the country, and 40% is from those coming in from the rest of the UK, i.e. England. We've excluded those coming in from outside the UK because their effect is neutral, because they're roughly 51% of the yes, 49% no on average. So it's pretty much 60-40. I was in favour of outflow compared to, we're losing. The reason for the swing away from yes is that we're losing. It's 60% caused by those people that are leaving the country, as opposed to who are yes supporters, as opposed to 40% of people coming in from the rest of the UK that are no supporters.
Right. If I'm understanding this correctly, this is telling us that it's the outflow of young people that is having a bigger effect on yes sentiment than the inflow of people from England. Is that correct?
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make.
Right, that's interesting because there's a lot of emphasis on the effect of from the inflow of people from England. There's not so much comment on the effect of the outflow. of young people, but it's actually that is having the biggest effect. That's a point very much worth making, I would think.
Yeah. People
When
do seem
people,
to miss that.
yeah, when
People have
people
been missing that. There's been a lot of commentary on the franchise, who should get the vote, who should get excluded from the vote. My emphasis was that's fine. That should be discussed, and we have done in the past. But really, I think we really should be looking at who should be included in the vote, who are not here at the moment, but maybe have just left. But maybe they've been living here for 25, 20 years of their life. They're now,
yeah.
but they've been away for 1 year. Should they not have a say in what happens to their country, particularly since they might come back in 2 years' time?
Yeah, that could be a corrective, if, but it might also be seen as gerrymandering. So, you know, as you say, these things should be discussed. I think the point I was making is that there should not be as much emphasis as there is on the incomers from England. They are not having the biggest effect, and yet they get the most attention. So there's an error in thinking there, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. There's only just to bear in mind that there's a lot of assumptions here, and one of them is about that age breakdown. That second scenario there, where in fact 2/3 of that's indicating that 2/3 of the swing is a result of incomers from England. That's because of the YouGov effect, where they're suggesting that actually instead of being 80%, 75, 80% of young folk being in favour of yes, it's only 64%, 65%. That's why you're getting that, but getting that impact. But 3 out of these 4 scenarios where you've got Ipsos, Norstat, and Survation, all roughly in line with regard to younger people being 75% in favour of yes. That's why I'm suggesting that is probably the more likely scenario or scenarios. So we'll move on to the conclusion. So the net impact is on yes is likely negative. Hopefully that's come across. And are you still there, Peter?
Yes, I am. I'm listening with great interest.
Okay, so the
Hello, Stephen.
right, just a bit of a technical issue there. Back now.
Ah.
Yeah, the net impact is likely negative. The inflows from from the rest of the UK are definitely a drag on yes support, but the migrants from outside the UK are having a neutral effect, and it's probably quite a positive effect if you look at the more recent opinion polls. And that's down to the sea change in sentiment probably from continentals post the Brexit vote. But I would say that the outflows are the greatest drawback or hindrance on yes sentiment, and the result is the net effect is that if there was nothing else to change, if nothing else impacted yes no, it would be a swing away from yes to no of 0.5%, maybe 0.8%, depending which scenario you pick, and that's in a short time period. This presentation really, or findings in this presentation, sort of reinforces what we've looked at before, just coming at it from a different angle when we're looking at the franchise specifically. And it does, where we sort of concluded that the vote qualifying criteria needs tightening for new arrivals, but also we really want to think about perhaps a grace period of those people who've just recently departed, that they might still have an opportunity to vote if the time period has not been too long since they left. And that's pretty much it. Just to say that it is a rough cut assessment, lots of assumptions going on here. There are provisions and caveats along the way, but we are just trying to get some kind of indication as to what effect, or try to isolate the effects of migration, both sides of the equation of migration, on the support for yes in Scotland going forward.
Well, that has been very interesting. I think it's.
Can't hear you, Peter.
Hello, you hear me now? No, I have no idea what has gone wrong. Let me see. I'm sorry, I must have accidentally, my shaky fingers, I must have accidentally muted my mic there. Apologies for that. What I was saying, Stephen, was that's thrown up some interesting, with the caveat that it is a very rough assessment. It's thrown up some information which seems to contradict a lot of existing assumptions. Particularly about the effect of inflow from England, which is, it's not the biggest problem. Sorry, are you hearing me now, Stephen?
Can't hear you.
Oh, it was... And now, are you hearing me now? No, this is... Right, we should be back now. No, still not hearing me. Right, I actually have no idea what's happened here. Are you getting me now? No? No. And now, is there anything coming across now? No. And I take it there's still nothing coming across. Okay.